Upper motor neurons are best understood as a critical bridge, a final common communication pathway between higher cortical and subcortical structures and the lower motor neurons that directly drive muscles. The structures that feed into the upper motor neuron system include not just the cortex itself, but also the basal ganglia, which play a major role in planning, initiating, sequencing, and modulating all voluntary movement. Much of what we know about normal upper motor neuron function has come from studying animals and humans with focal brain lesions, essentially learning what the system does by observing what fails when it is damaged. Upper motor neuron pathways are vulnerable to disruption at multiple anatomical points: the cortex itself, the subcortical white matter beneath the cortex, the internal capsule, the brainstem at any level, or the spinal cord. The bilateral cortical input principle is central to understanding which muscles are and are not affected by unilateral lesions. Muscles that receive input from both hemispheres simultaneously, including the extraocular muscles controlling eye movement, the jaw muscles, the upper facial muscles, the pharynx, larynx, neck, thorax, and abdomen, are protected from permanent paralysis by a unilateral lesion, because the undamaged hemisphere can still drive them. Only muscles that depend primarily on contralateral cortical input, most importantly the lower face and the distal limbs, are vulnerable to significant, lasting weakness from a one-sided lesion. Paralysis from upper motor neuron lesions is also rarely complete for a prolonged period, unlike lower motor neuron lesions where permanent complete paralysis of a muscle is possible if the nerve is destroyed. In review, the lateral corticospinal tract is the major descending motor tract. Signals from one cerebral hemisphere cross in the medulla and descend in the opposite side of the spinal cord, so lesions above the decussation cause contralateral weakness. UMNs are central descending neurons that influence voluntary movement through spinal anterior horn cells and interneurons rather than serving as the final common pathway. Local spinal reflexes may persist even when corticospinal input is interrupted. Muscles controlling the jaw, pharynx, larynx, upper face, neck, thorax, and abdomen receive bilateral hemispheric input, so unilateral cerebral lesions typically cause contralateral limb and lower facial weakness. Immediately after acute brain or spinal cord injury, UMN lesions may present with hypotonia or flaccid paralysis and depressed reflexes. Over time, disrupted cortical inhibition of spinal circuitry leads to spasticity, hypertonia, and hyperreflexia. Helpful bedside signs of UMN involvement include brisk deep tendon reflexes, sustained clonus, Babinski response, velocity-dependent increased tone, and weakness in a pyramidal distribution. In the next video, number 34, we will talk about spinal shock.